Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy shit we don't need.
Hey everyone, it's Igor and Ryan here with the newest episode of Project Uproar.
Yeah, and today we're going to be talking about fasting. Now, we did a podcast episode a little while back about the benefits of fasting, and we want to talk a little bit more about not only the health benefits of fasting, but also the mental benefits of fasting.
So Ryan, why don't you introduce everyone to how you've been fasting, and then I'll introduce everyone to how I've been fasting.
Sure, so over the past month or so, I've been fasting once a week. So what I do is I choose a day. I usually choose a day that's consistent. So for myself, it's usually a Tuesday. The reason I choose a Tuesday is because my day is pretty busy. What I do is I teach during the day, and then I usually teach a college class at night. So I don't really have a chance to get together with someone over a meal. So it's easier for me to go without eating on a Tuesday because I don't have that pressure of someone asking me, hey, do you want to go and eat? And then me having to reject their request. Mm-hmm. So it's always good if you want to start fasting, choose a day that maybe you're busy, you won't have that opportunity or pressure.
As much temptation.
Yes, temptation to dine with someone else or dine with your family. Choose a day that works for you and try to keep it consistent, because that consistency will build that routine if you're interested in fasting once a week or once every 2 weeks or once every month. So that's number one, I would say. Try to build that day. So my Tuesday is my day. Now, interestingly enough, I had to switch it this week to Thursday for a specific reason, which is fine. My Thursday was my day. So actually, yesterday was Thursday. So yesterday I went a day without eating. And today, actually, I didn't eat breakfast. I didn't eat until lunch. So it was a bit of a longer fast than just a regular 24-hour fast. And interestingly enough, I decided to go for a 5K run today, which was a little bit difficult considering I didn't have that food in my system. But what I noticed was when I got to lunchtime, I was super appreciative of the food that was in front of me. And what I also noticed was I didn't feel like I had to stuff my face with food because I was so hungry.
So Ryan's been doing it more consistently than me, at least a 24-hour fast. For example, at least 24 hours, or it's usually more because you wake up, you don't eat anything, you go to bed. So it's usually more than 24 hours. But I've done actually quite a few of those myself, but it was like a few months ago. And now I've been, though, consistent, and this is pretty much every day. I don't eat until 12 noon. So pretty much I wake up, we usually wake up around 5 a.m. or sooner, and I don't eat until 12. And that's been working out really well for me. I find that I can focus, I get a lot of stuff done, and then all of a sudden, now I'm looking forward to eating, and it's a motivation for me to like work so I can actually eat, right? So that's been really awesome. That's been how I've been doing it consistently. And today, for example, I haven't eaten anything. Right now it's, what would you say, like 3 p.m., something like that. And I've only eaten soup so far. So today I've been tried to do a little more of a fast than usual. But Ryan is definitely the person who's not just been doing intermittent fasting, but doing that longer kind of fasting. So we're definitely gonna get more into that, pick Ryan's brain a bit about it. And what I want to know, Ryan, I'll ask you, is why you got into fasting. What drew you to the idea of fasting?
Well, the first reason I got into fasting, I'll be honest with you, was to help with some weight loss. I looked online. I found a number of articles that supported how fasting can help with weight loss. I talked to my doctor. I think if you want to get into fasting, it is important to talk to your doctor. Even if you're healthy, just run your opinion by your doctor, see what your doctor says. My doctor was 100% for it. My doctor actually said that he sometimes encourages his patients to fast depending on their situation because it really helps with digestion. It really helps with like cell repair. So I think fasting, and again, it's not like you're fasting every other day. Like being able to fast maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, once a month, finding that day that your body is able to take a break, I think is really important. And after realizing like it did produce those health benefits, it did help me really after a month. I saw like weight loss and like significant weight loss. I was able to keep down my weight, which is great, which never happened before. I changed my diet. I did various cardio exercises. And though, it might have dropped me a couple pounds here and there, it didn't consistently keep me down. So being able to fast once a week, along with the healthier diet, along with making cardio and exercise a regular thing in my routine, really helped bring down my weight. I think I actually lost about 20, if not 25 pounds, which is huge because it took me years to try to get that weight down. So it did have weight benefits, but then afterwards, besides weight benefits, I think fasting is really good mentally as well. And we could talk about those mental benefits a little bit after if you'd like. But
for sure.
I definitely think that fasting, it's not just about those small, they may not be small, but those health goals. There are, I think, so many other benefits to fasting besides just wanting to lose weight.
Definitely. And for example, me, I never wanted to lose weight. Like, that's not really a goal I have right now. I maintain a specific weight, but I'm not trying to like lose a bunch of weight, like 25 pounds. I do not want to lose that much right now. But I'm also fascinated with the idea of fasting. And we'll actually link the Art of Manliness fasting podcast that inspired us both a bit, where we actually have a Catholic priest, right, who's actually talking about fasting and he's actually written books and he's studied different religions, and almost all of the big religions, if not all of them, have fasting, right? They include in some form or another fasting. And as he says in that podcast, the fact that so many religions include that means there's gotta be something to it, right? There has to be benefits. Traditionally, there has to be something that drew all these different people from all these different places and cultures to this practice. And so that's something that really interested me, and the idea of developing that self-discipline. So when you really want to eat something, because like that's one of the most basic human urges, to eat, obviously, and if you're able to withhold that, all of a sudden other things, I always talk about the willpower muscles, doing stuff that's almost against what you naturally want to do, your lazy self. And one of those things is obviously you want to grab a snack, you want to eat, and all of a sudden if you train yourself for an entire day, not especially once a week, if you make it regular, or once a month or something like that, if you just don't eat all day, all of a sudden the little in-between snacks and stuff like that are so much easier to say no to, because all of a sudden you've developed that muscle where you're like, oh, I can go a day without eating anything. Of course I can say no to this donut, or of course I can say no to this something you don't want to eat, right? It's not good for you. So in that way, that's one of the things that really drove me to try fasting. The fact that it develops that willpower muscle, which you need to do things that push your comfort zone, that you have to use to overcome resistance when it comes to something important to you, whether it's writing or following a passion or whatever. The more you exercise that willpower muscle with cold showers and anything else you can think of, the more you're going to be able to actually do in life, right? So you're not going to be scared about the outcome, you're just going to do it. And this, I believe, is training that same muscle, that discipline of, okay, now I want to eat, but no, I'm not going to eat. And obviously, yeah, I agree with Ryan. You shouldn't go overboard, especially if it's your first time. You should probably ask your doctor, and you should maybe start with skipping one meal, then maybe two, and then go from there. Don't just, oh, I'm not going to eat for a week now. But yeah, definitely. And the way we've been doing it is usually when we do a full day fast, we have water and we have coffee and sometimes Gatorade.
Yeah, for sure. And I think something else that fasting, at least for myself, and I don't know if there's any science behind this, but it's interesting when I fast, and when I'm in a routine of fasting. So right now, like I said, for the last month, I've been in a routine of fasting once a week. Before that, I think I didn't fast for probably a couple months. Like I was regularly eating every day for each of the weeks leading up to it. But since I've been in this routine of fasting, it's interesting because I haven't had an urge to eat anything like fast food or greasy, which is, I don't know if that's my brain telling me, yeah, I shouldn't be doing this, or if it's my brain saying, hey, you went a day without food, I'm sure you can resist this, or if it's just basically just being turned off by that food. I don't know what it is, but I've noticed that I've been kind of drawn away from greasier fast food, which is interesting because before I started this routine, not that I ate it every day, but probably at least once, maybe twice a week, I would engage in some sort of eating fast food. So definitely fasting for myself has kind of turned me off from fast food, which possibly may do the same thing for you. It might not, but I think that's an interesting observation that I've observed for myself since I've made fasting a part of my routine just for the past month.
Yes, and I think it applies to more than just food, right? Because all of a sudden, and obviously I'm not ragging on video games or anything, but let's say video games aren't in alignment with your goals. It's much easier to say no to those video games. It's much easier to say no to that TV show that you don't really care about, but hey, you're bored, so you want to watch it rather than doing something that you should be doing, right? You want to procrastinate. It's much easier to say no to all those things if you've said no to food.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, what fasting does, though, yes, it can have health benefits, but it definitely helps train that mental muscle, right? And for myself, I always think this, especially last week, we talked about running, right? And the difficulty of having to run long distance. And for myself, what fasting allowed me to do was it helped build the discipline muscle that helped me complete my half marathon. Because really what fasting taught me is, yes, you could go through this temporary amount of discomfort, right? I'll be honest with you, especially the first couple times you fast, you're gonna feel uncomfortable at a certain point. Maybe it'll hit you at 12 o'clock, maybe it'll hit you at 5, maybe before you go to bed. Not last time, but the time before, I felt for some reason like really hungry at about 8 o'clock. And I just said, okay, I'm gonna go to bed early to avoid the temptation of eating a snack because I want to fulfill that one day of fasting. So I think what it does is it builds that mental muscle that allows you to say no and keep going. And at the same time, that translates to so many things. So it can translate to running. It could translate to keeping a certain routine, such as getting up early in the morning, right? You're like, oh, I've dealt a whole day with, discomfort when it comes to not eating, saying no to food. So I could go with getting up a little bit earlier, right? This discomfort is nothing compared with fasting. Or you could say about spending extra time doing schoolwork that maybe before you would say, no, I don't really, it's uncomfortable if I spend that time doing schoolwork. I want to be doing something else like playing, we said, video games or doing something that may distract you from your work. It shows I can get through this moment of discomfort. So I think very much fasting is this training ground for like voluntary discomfort,
Yes.
Which I think voluntary discomfort is important. Obviously, you shouldn't be doing this all the time, like we said, but it's just this something you put yourself through here and there, right? Not all the time, here and there. And I think that trains you for so many other things in life.
Yeah, it's like that Stoic saying where if in the winter you prepare to fight, so in the summer you're ready for war. And the idea is, if we prepare ourselves when we don't need to, voluntary discomfort, and it applies to a lot of things, including fasting, all of a sudden, when we deal with difficult situations, we'll be prepared. Let's say, God forbid, but if ever we're in a situation where we don't have 3 meals a day, we can't afford it, then all of a sudden, we're more prepared for that than if it was we never in our lives actually tried to not eat a bunch a day and have a bunch of different snacks, which is how people usually go about it. Before it used to be just 3 meals, now it's become 3 meals and a bunch of snacks in between, and now I'm going out with my friends, so I'll grab a bite there. And it's just become a thing where people almost unconsciously eat, right? And I think one of the good things about fasting is all of a sudden it brings you into acting consciously with food, and then it brings you into acting consciously in other ways, which becomes this positive upward spiral where you can do a bunch of different things that all of a sudden you couldn't do because you didn't have the confidence, but all of a sudden once you manage to fast, right, you develop that confidence and you get on that positive momentum.
For sure. And I think, similar to how we said running can be meditative or reflective, I think fasting can as well. Similar to what Igor just said, I think that so often, and this has happened with me, I've reflected on it as well, when we're snacking and overindulging in food, a lot of times we're not actually hungry. We're eating for the sake of trying to fill some sort of hole, or we're bored. So what do? We're going to eat to fill that void. And I think by pausing and saying no to that, especially if it has to do with like snacking after you just finished a big meal, by saying no to that, what we're doing is we're actually providing ourselves an opportunity to reflect on, so why do we feel like we have to eat? Are we doing this for a particular reason, to help mask something or fill a void about something? What is that void? What is the actual issue at hand? Sometimes food can just be this way of coping with something more deeper that maybe we haven't investigated yet. So I think definitely by saying no, by pausing, almost just like unplugging, right? When you unplug when it comes to technology, so often we go on our phones just because we're trying to fill a void or because of another reason. I think that eating works in a similar way.
And that's a really great point that you brought up, the idea of filling a hole, like distracting ourselves almost. And yeah, we do that with a lot of things. Maybe, you come home, watch TV. I know people who eat, and I'm guilty of this sometimes too. So I'm eating while watching a podcast or something, or while watching a YouTube video, or some people eat while watching TV, right? We're not present while we're eating. So I suggest even when you eat, just to bring presence to it. Maybe like turn off the technology and just enjoy the food and be grateful for the food. If you believe in God, thank God for the food and be grateful that you have something to eat, this thing that will nourish you, right? When you fast, all of a sudden, something you took for granted comes into focus really clearly, and you can really appreciate that food. And I recommend really that people focus on eating it because it makes a huge difference and you enjoy it, the taste, and you're much less likely to overeat, because when your mind's somewhere else, you're much more likely to just keep eating and not thinking. But when you're actually present, all of a sudden your body almost tells you when it's enough. So I also wanted to mention what was mentioned in the Art of Manliness podcast, which is the priest said fasting reminds us that there's some things more important than life, which for him, for example, is God. When he loses track of his priorities, fasting reminds him that, okay, no, God is above all these things, and God is even above life itself, right? So in a way, tying it even to Stoicism, it's a way to put self-discipline, which is one of the 4 virtues of Stoicism, above the idea that you need to eat right now. So obviously don't go overboard, but doing it for one day, reorganizing your perspective, I think is very beneficial. And Ryan, I would also want to ask you, because I know I have people in my life and a lot of people don't really get fasting. We're always told breakfast is the most important meal of the day. We've been told that as like kids, and our parents have been told that as kids. So it seems weird. It challenges realities, right? So how would you get someone, or not even get, because we're not insisting anyone does this, but what would you say to someone who's really against the idea of fasting and it seems weird to them and they don't like the idea at all?
I think what I would say is, obviously, this is not a way of life that I'm trying to force on someone.
For sure.
But I think what fasting does, similar to what I said before, it kind of challenges conventions in terms of making us believe that, hey, we have to be eating all the time, right? I know myself, I come from an Italian family, and growing up, my grandmother always used to say, you have to be eating, you have to be eating. You need a 3-course meal every meal, and if not, there's something wrong. I think you may be sick if you don't want to eat. So what it does is, I think number one is it helps challenge that idea that to be healthy, you need a 3-course meal that is a full meal. I think what fasting allows us to do is to understand that as humans, we don't need to be filled up all day. We could go without, and even at times feel a little hungry, and that's normal, right? I think when it comes to like our ancestors in terms of those who weren't even like Homo sapiens, even like before, right? So many of them, you know, they weren't eating for 3 meals a day. In fact, some of them went days without eating and they'd still be exercising and they'd still be fine. So I think it challenges kind of our way of life, and it goes to show, hey, just because possibly, you know, we've been told we need to be full all day, we don't actually have to be. And in fact, it's a lot of times not even healthy. If you talk to a doctor, they'll say it's not really healthy to feel full all the time. But as well, what it does is it improves so many other aspects of your life, and it teaches you so many other lessons. I know myself, a big lesson that fasting has taught me is to be more patient and to be okay waiting, right? Because when you're fasting, you're basically telling yourself you have to train your mind that you have to wait today. You can't just eat because you want to eat. You have to be willing to be patient and think of the macro instead of the micro, right? The macro gains instead of the micro pleasures. And I think when it comes to young people like ourselves, especially when it comes to trying to find a job in a difficult economy, or trying to find success right away, we have to be very patient, right? I know Gary Vaynerchuk talks all about the idea of, you know, people in their 20s and 30s and 40s even, right, have difficulty being patient and enjoying the process of things and being okay with not getting instant results. And I think that's what fasting is all about. It's about, it teaches you patience. It teaches you to say no and to kind of go through something uncomfortable or difficult. And then the next day, I guarantee you, you will feel good. Like it'll be a sense of accomplishment, which is something great. If you're someone who's like feeling down, depressed, feel like nothing's going for you, if you go a day, and you're healthy obviously, but if you go a day without eating and the next day you wake up, you'll be like, wow, I've accomplished something. Like I was able to follow through on a commitment. That's great. And it can have like a domino effect. And the first time I ever fast, I still remember the very next day I ate a banana in the morning for breakfast, and it was like the tastiest banana I ever ate. And I don't think it was because of the banana, it was because like my taste buds were like, wow, food is great. It doesn't have to be something that is, you know, cheesecake. Anything is great for you.
That's definitely the case. And just to reiterate some of the positive effects on the body, which is also the fact that your body needs time sometimes to work on itself. And when it's constantly digesting, you're constantly filling it with food, then all of a sudden it doesn't have that energy to put elsewhere, right? So a lot of people, when they actually want to heal different things, they actually go on fasting. So it has actually benefits physically, which is one of the main things that we haven't talked about too much, but definitely I encourage you to research more. But definitely when it comes to me, I'm more like of a philosophical faster and someone who really notices the benefits just spiritually in the mind, right? Stuff like that. And it comes down to me for you always want to strive to be free. And freedom, ironically, is being disciplined, aka not being a slave to our desires, right? Our immediate desires. So in that way, fasting trains that muscle so that we are free and we're not just a slave to food and then to other things as well.
Yeah, for sure. Fasting may just be something small, like I said, just once a week, but I think it has big gains and it can influence so many other things in your life.
We would love to hear what you think and ask us any questions about fasting that we can answer, about our own experience, and we'll definitely do that. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, it would mean a lot to us if you liked and shared, and make sure to subscribe because we're really trying to do weekly videos right now. So we really love this stuff. We're passionate about it, and we really appreciate you watching. All right, until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.